Thank you so very much. You'll be delighted to know that this is my speech. So, when I heard Representative Moak, who's always very eloquent, up here making some comments, I said, well, I better at least take some notes. I mean, but I do want to say this. I appreciate very much what Representative Moak said about the need to work together. Speaker Gunn and hopefully myself also, when we spoke on Tuesday after our election, we both tried to emphasize, and hopefully successfully did so, that the election's over with. We've got to move ahead. The work is too hard for us to be divided on things we can work together on. It's been my experience ever since I was elected to this legislature, and I see Speaker Ford here, that particularly with economic development matters, job creation efforts, we have always been able to put aside, to most degrees, partisan politics and even issues of geography and regionalism that sometimes hamper us. That's been like we used to think of the federal government and Congress when they were talking about defense issues or foreign relations. It was something that was bipartisan in nature. I think we still have that spirit, especially in the area of job creation and in economic development, which is so important to us all. So I will say this. I have already congratulated Representative Moak for his election to head the House Democratic Caucus. I told him I think it's a very important position, sincerely so. We're very mindful of the fact, as we have to be, that there are 58 Democrats in the House of Representatives, only 64 of us. Now, I wasn't a math major, but that's not a huge majority. And that ought to tell everyone that it's a real necessity to work across the aisle and look for common interest and to work together. And I know Philip Gunn is committed to do that, and certainly I am, and I believe the leadership team that you'll see that is put in place will be committed to do that. Bobby's position is key because you can't ignore the other side. And without being critical of folks going before, that's been tried, and it doesn't work to ignore your opponents or your adversaries or even folks that mildly disagree with you. You've got to work with them, and we're committed to do that and going to do that. I also see my mayor here, by the way, Mayor Berry. Good to see you, Mayor. I did want to say a couple of things. People ask about what we're doing right now because everybody's waiting to hear committee chairs, wanting to know something about the process we're going through. And the truth is, I assure people, and I want to assure you, we know what we're doing, all right? We really do. We're not sure what that is yet, but rest assured we know what we're doing. And if that makes any sense, what I'm trying to convey to you is there is a process. It is a deliberative process. One of Philip Gunn's strengths, and he has many, but one of his strengths, he is a deliberative person. He's not someone who's impulsive. He does listen more than he talks, which is a failing of mine to do the opposite. But he actually does crank in a lot of information from a lot of people, and he'll make good and solid decisions. You're going to be happy when you see those. They haven't been made yet, many of them. And it is a process that we're working through. And again, I assure you, he knows what he's doing. We know what we're doing. It just hasn't been done yet. And if that makes any sense, that is what we're working on. Now, I did want to, we also get asked about specific legislation, pieces of legislation. You know, one thing about the legislature is it is a legislative body, okay? And that may sound kind of trite, but legislative bodies work through a process, a committee process. These chairmen, everybody's interested to know, you know, who are they going to be. I kind of like to know myself. Those folks have real jobs. You know, they have to. They're the first people to look at the legislation. They're the ones that make decisions on what's going forward and what doesn't. That's the way any deliberative body, I think, on the face of this earth, any real one, works. So if someone asks me, well, what do you think about this legislation, that legislation, and I say with all sincerity, it may, again, sound like you're being cute and you're not. You know, that's going to be up to whoever these chairmen are, in large respect. And I don't know all those answers yet. Someone may, I mean, I could give you a pretty good guess about some pieces of legislation I think we may see, but ultimately that's got to come through the process, and that still lies ahead of us. That's a very important thing that has to happen. I will say this, we all know the budget situation is something that is paramount. And I've said this before the campaign, certainly during the campaign and after the campaign. In my own personal view, and many of you know, if you look at our general fund revenues, you know that about 80% of our general fund revenues come either from income tax are from sales tax. About 40% or so comes from sales taxes. Another 30% from individual income taxes and 10% from corporate income taxes. Fully 80% is so sensitive to the economy and the state of the economy. Our revenue picture in the state of Mississippi is not going to improve until we put people back to work, until our private sector gets back to where it needs to be and employs the folks so they can make some income and pay some income taxes, so they can have some disposable income and go buy the goods that they need that will derive sales tax. That's going to be the key to our recovery, and it's not all in our hands, obviously. It's something that is, as the governor said yesterday and reminded us, it's not only a national downturn, national recession, it's international. So we've got to see that sort of improvement. Now, there are things we can do and will do, and I do think you're going to be pleased with the leadership team that will be in place. You're going to find a team that's committed to growth, committed to job opportunity. You're going to see that. I don't have any doubt about that because, you know, again, sounds maybe trite to say, but this public sector, some people say public sector can't create jobs. Well, we do create some jobs, and some of them, you know, are necessary. I mean, certainly public jobs. But really, the jobs that drive our economy, they come from the private sector. You know that. You people in this room more than anybody know that. Government can't really create those jobs, but government sure can kill those jobs. And you know that as well. The wrong kind of policies discourage employers. Too much tax, too much regulation, and you're going to have an economy that's not capable of turning it around. And we're going to fight in this legislature, I'm confident, to avoid that situation, to posture us, to position us so that we are in the business, have the business climate we need and the economic development culture we need to move our state forward. Finally, people also ask about redistricting. Gee, I don't know. You know, I've got some hopes that we get it solved, and I really think we will, in all honesty. It's our job. You know, there was a discussion last year, ended up in court, about whether or not the legislature should have redistricted last year or attempted to redistrict last year. Bottom line is the court said we ran last year on the current districts, but we also know that the Constitution requires us to redistrict this spring, and we're going to do that. I believe we'll be successful in doing that and getting House and Senate agreement. That you know, the challenge there is to get a plan that's a fair plan, a plan that does not retrogress with minority voting rights. I mean, those are all key. One, it's the right thing to do, and two, it's the law. And we're going to do those things. We're going to have a plan that meets those requirements and that is a fair plan. We're going to have compact districts. We're going to have districts that are obviously one man, one vote, that are apportioned correctly. We're going to have a system where we have a minimum of split precincts. One thing I'm so proud about the federal plan, the federal court did it and the legislature didn't, so maybe I shouldn't be bragging on it, but did you see there's no split precincts statewide in that plan? That's easier to do, obviously, with a congressional map than with a legislative map. But people hate split precincts. If you look back at the election problems we've had in the last few cycles, most of those, if they're not related to absentee ballots, and a lot of those are problems too, they're related to the confusion at the polls that are largely because of split precincts. We've got to do away with that, in my opinion, and I think we will. I think we'll have a fair plan that does that. Now, having said that, that's my quick and dirty, I guess, discussion off the top of my head. I want to tell you what an honor it is to serve the people of Mississippi, certainly the people of my district here in this legislature. It's an exciting time for those of us that frankly haven't been in positions of responsibility, or at least not in the positions of responsibility we find ourselves in now. I'm sure we'll make some mistakes. I've made some already, I'm sure. We ask for some indulgence on that. We do have somewhat of a learning curve, but you're in good hands. I assure you that. I think you're going to be pleased with what you see, not only in the leadership team that comes out, but the results as we go through not only this session, but this term. And I thank you so much. It's an incredibly important organization and incredibly important people in this room, and I want to assure you the people in the House of Representatives understand that. Thank you so much.